and then I find out that he is very efficient and proficient in playing the violin, and he wanted to experience that in an orchestra because he said he wouldn't get that experience playing piano. So I think how fabulous is that because you know he has these amazing. I mean, I see him often on networking events, and he plays us out at the end and plays some interesting tunes and things. But this is a different side of Lincoln that I'm seeing, and those that are listening that know him are finding out more about him, which is absolutely fabulous. Now, continue with TikTok and talking about how your daughters and young kids get information and see things in a different way to what us more mature people see things and hear things.
I was going to explain about a specific event that happened last month, a 90th birthday party. I was playing the piano. The room was full of everything from 18 up to 90 something, and there was a magician. I call him, his name's Magic Andy, and he was doing magic at the tables. And there was a table of young people. They were aged between, let's say, 18 and 25, and clearly they had never been entertained in this fashion before. And I was not just fascinated by watching them be entertained by a man who was making things appear and disappear. I filmed it because there was that kind of, who are you? What are you doing here? We're having a conversation. Why are you interrupting us? To amazement that this man could make three balls appear from his hand when he had one, or he could make the ace of spades turn into the jack of diamonds. There was something very, very beautiful about how straightforwardly wonderful the magic was. And they, in their world of technology, they had never had that kind of simple entertainment. And it was almost like, this is how we used to entertain ourselves. And they're all, well, they're not talking to each other, they're all on their phones, and then suddenly somebody's interacting them in a very real way, close up. They're cynical, they're looking for the strings or the tricks or the whatever, and they couldn't find it. This man was just creating magic. And I thought, this is really symptomatic of how the world is, that different people now are entertained different ways. People are famous for different reasons now. People are not famous for being talented. They're famous for being well known. They're famous for all around the world. People of a certain generation are watching reality TV shows. They're watching people cooking, or they're watching people move house, or married at first sight. They're watching people get married. People are becoming famous because they got married. They married somebody that they'd never met, and they were on television, and their face is familiar. To think that, you
Don't
could
understand
be,
that.
you could be on one channel, and this could be on the other channel, and that could beat you. And they're not
Yes.
doing anything. They're not doing it. Look, I have to admit that I have watched Married at First Sight. I watched all 22 shows.
Can't
I
bring
can't
myself.
believe I cannot believe that this pile of rubbish drew me in. But
what was it about it that drew you in? Because it can't draw me in. It just does my head in.
I think that I mean, as I alluded to, that my wife is no longer here. My wife of 18 years, we lost her in January to cancer. But when I switch it, I think Lincoln Noel, the maestro, switches off and just becomes Anne Marie's husband, and we're cuddled up on the couch, just chilling out. And this is something that kind of washes over us, and it's a whole load of nothing. There have been many times when the two of us have watched something from beginning to end, and then as the credits have rolled, we've said, why did we'll never get those 60 minutes back. And it's one thing that we always used to laugh at. But I suppose with the intensity of your existence, you have to have a little bit of escapism.
Yeah.
And and Anne Marie and I were actually very. It's not so fact. It's not so much the fact that I'm watching this program, is that I'm with her and we're
Yes.
just chilling out and unwinding. Um, but for a lot of people, that is their entertainment.
Yeah.
And I won't say it's worrying, because that's people have to make their choices. And we, in an actual fact, we have too many choices. I don't know what it was like in Australia, but growing up in the 70s, we had 3 channels, and everybody saw Oscar Peterson play on TV. They saw Yehudi Menuhin play on TV. They watched the proms, they watched the ballet, they watched comedy, they watched big band, they watched Jimi Hendrix. They seemed more informed.
They watched test patterns when the TV came on and went off. Black and white.
Yeah,
Quite
it wasn't
amazing, isn't it?
24/7.
No, it wasn't. It
It
wasn't.
wasn't 24/7, and
Mm.
yet we watched Test cricket. I mean, I learned about, I learned to love Test cricket from watching it on free to air TV. Test cricket, music, performance, entertainment, the art of entertaining. I learned a lot about the art of entertaining from watching entertainers who were talented on TV. I aspired to be like them. It's what gave me the motivation to practice, so that I could one day be on a bigger stage, not necessarily a television stage. I mean, I was always performing. Let's say I'll say from the age of 6, I played a piece of music at church just to an audience who were impressed by it. So I understood the value of um, applause, and the exhilaration, and the sense of nervousness before a live performance, and everything that was entailed in that. The value is only with maturity that you start to realize, as you said before, that you give people nostalgia when you play songs that take them back to earlier memories, especially people who've got dementia. There are people who cannot remember or recall what they had for breakfast, but you could play "Oh What a Beautiful Morning," and they're
And they
there,
will, yeah,
single word on the chorus.
yeah,
Uh, and
yeah,
they're suddenly transported back to when they were 16 or 19 or 22, or when they fell in love, or um, it's you know I think in the early days, I just knew that there was a value to performing, and I wanted to be that person who gave people a good feeling. And I didn't have a barrier to entry. My dad used to say to me that I could play for kings and dukes. And I always used to say, but I also want to play for the people that haven't got status as well. And if there's 2 things that I would say, I wanted to play and be able to have that as my job, and 2, I wanted to always be accessible to every level of society.
mm.
Having played for the royal family and the aristocracy, but also played for my neighbours. In lockdown, I was out the front door playing for my people and playing on Facebook Live. There's something very beautiful about knowing that someone who's trapped because of COVID, they can't see their grandchildren, or they can't see their nephews or their children, or even talk to their friends. But I was that window of the world, and they were able to access something very magical from me playing to that screen, um, or even in the early days to this phone. Uh, the camera on that phone took me to Argentina, to China, to the States. It's what first brought me to you. And I've got to mention Mr. Kingwill and his lovely lady Helen. I know he's listed. Ian, if Ian Maribel hadn't mentioned to me that Tuesday afternoon about HNP, I would never have traveled across the world to all those lovely people that I see on a Wednesday morning or Tuesday night, and that's why we're talking. So I've got to shout out to Ian, who's a great friend, a great motivator, and has the thing about Ian is that he keeps me at it. He keeps us at it.
He
Get out
does.
there, get out there.
It
The art
does.
of communication. He reminds you to communicate. We are communicators. You're a communicator. I'm a communicator. But he keeps us at it, and he reminds us to keep telling our story. And that's the art of networking. And performing is networking in a different kind of way. You're reaching people. You are touching their lives. You're making a difference. And I wanted to give everybody that I played for that good feeling. I know that all music isn't, the Queenie project. Queenie sings the blues tunes
Love the
are
blues.
quite sad, but
Love
it's
them.
life's journey. It's life's journey,
Mm.
um, and we can reflect and be stimulated to challenge our thoughts and our beliefs and all the rest of it without hurting anybody. And that's what music does. It's an international language.
Well, music, whether you're sad or whatever, can bring you back to a place where you're feeling good or happy or you just want to dance. I mean, I play music all the time, not on the radio because I choose not to, but I like to listen to music and different bits of music that come on. You think, oh, I could dance to that, or that makes you feel good, or you sing along with it, or whatever. It's inspirational, it's motivating, it gives you something that other things don't. And if you're feeling a little bit down, put on some music, put on some really happy music and start dancing to it, because it changes your mood, it changes the way you think or the way you're feeling at that moment. So music has so much to offer everyone, not just some people, but everyone. Doesn't matter what sort of music you like. It has there's something there that will give you something that you need at the time that you're listening to whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah,
And it'll take you on a journey. It can take you on a journey. It can take you into places if you're not feeling good at that time. It can take you somewhere else, transport you somewhere else to make you feel good for a period of time. And you say with the dementia, I used to teach exercise and I'd go into places like aged care homes and teach class, and you'd watch them, and it's really interesting to see their reactions to different things, and um, it 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 just transports them. And I remember a beautiful woman. She was immaculately dressed, and we were passing a ball around, and two of her family used to come and visit her all the time, and they'd go and sit in a room and she would say nothing, and they were sitting behind her when she was actually exercising. She was in the participating, and she'd get the ball and she'd pat the ball and she'd say, "You naughty little bastard." That's what she'd say. And they said, but this is the thing, they said this is the most interaction that they'd seen her have in a long time, you know? So there's a stimulation, there was music playing, and there's a stimulation there that changes the brain's the way the brain sees things, and we can rebuild our brain to make it work again. So, with dementia, they're saying, well, you don't have that short-term memory, but you have that long-term memory, and that's what you were saying before about playing older music, and they can sing the chorus and remember and reminisce. But if you've got something that's current, they can't remember it, which is sad. It's a terrible disease. All diseases are terrible, but to give them something to make them happy instead of sitting there in their place of, well, their home a lot
yeah,
of the time, you give them pleasure.
yeah. My mother just turned 84, has got dementia. Um, although I hasten to add, I haven't yet taken my piano to her care home. So that's one thing that I've got to do before we hit Christmas, is to take to play to my own mother in her care home with all her friends
Mm.
at Burlington. They're a fantastic, but she's always singing. Whenever whenever I see her, she is singing. The staff say she's always singing. She's always the first one up dancing. Um, and yeah, it's observing my mum. Um, my mum always goes back to her teenage years. She goes back. My mum was from Barbados, and my
Oh,
dad was from the West Indies, and they met in Northampton, where I live now. Because people think that my parents met in the Caribbean. I did a wedding recently for uh, two Poles, and they met in Northampton. um, and it just seems extraordinary. Everybody thinks that they met in Poland, and that their children. Their children are Northamptonians. They are the children are talking with a Northampton accent. They're arguing about Manchester United and Arsenal. They're not talking about they do, of course they have their Polish heritage and they speak Polish, but they are British kids. And my mum and dad met in the exotic surroundings of St James in Northampton, which is not an inspiring under the floodlights, literally, of Northampton Saints. For those of you who love your rugby, um, Courtney Laws and all those guys, they literally met a stone's throw from the rugby ground, and it's in that same street where I had my piano lessons as a 4-year-old.
mm.
Um, well, Molly taught me the organ and the theory and all the rest of it, and has she's since passed away just after her 90th birthday. But you know, she's back in the 50s. She's back in Barbados. She's back playing in Marley Vale, and she's singing songs, and she's talking about what she did. And suddenly I'm with my mum, and she's talking as if she was 17 again,
Mm.
17, 18.
Mm.
While we were talking about, I was on my Apple Music. I've got different groups of pieces of music according to different phases in my life. So if I want to go back, I
You
go
can.
back I
Yeah.
go back to Greece, when I was 12, 13, with Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta, and at the same